Good evening, everyone.
Let me just start this.
Okay. Well, actually, I'm not going to open up the meeting just yet.
Okay.
Because I'll explain in just a minute. So while you get ready, let me explain to the committee who's here a couple of things, why I'm going to open the meeting and chair it for the first part of the meeting anyway tonight. In case I haven't met anybody, I'm Matt Knickerbocker, First Selectman. As you know, in a couple of minutes, Lisa is going to swear you in. And I wanted to explain why that wasn't done on the first part. This is it's very much a sensitive topic. Some people are very passionate about it. There is a rule, there is a law, in state law, there's a statute in the state code book that says that any board or commission at every level, you know, whether it's local government, state government, whatever, whether it's elected or appointed, has to have a certain balance between parties, Republicans and Democrats, or independents and unaffiliated. So I was trying to avoid that. Quite frankly, I got slapped a little bit by the town attorney on that. But the reason I wanted to do that is that I wanted anybody who raised their hand and said, I want to be a part of this, to have an opportunity to do it. It's the same reason that I haven't gone about trying to establish an arts commission or something, because some things, some functions that we do have nothing to do with politics, it has nothing to do with parties, and yet we have the burden of the state law, which is also embedded in our charter, that says you must not have more than 2/3 of the seats belong to any one party, and they consider, even if you're not a member of a party, if you're unaffiliated, the state considers that a party, even though you're not. It's really kind of a ridiculous law that has probably outlived its usefulness, but it forces political considerations into areas that, you know, that I don't think they should be, and I think you would probably agree. So, and the second thing is, I just wanted this to be more of an informal discussion group because you're going to make a recommendation. The Board of Selectmen has the burden of making the final decision, but we're counting on you to make discuss this thoroughly and come up with a recommendation. So we thought that not having this be a formal committee would facilitate that type of conversation. So as I said, the town attorney got wind of that and slapped me around a little bit, corrected my mistake, and he said, no, doesn't matter what it is, you have to appoint people, they have to be sworn in by the town clerk, you have to sign the big book, which will be in the vault forever. Your name will be immortalized as a member of this committee. We did check everybody's party affiliation, and we're good. It complies with the law just by coincidence. So I don't have to ask anybody to step down because or not participate because we have the wrong balance and it violated the state law. So the second reason I'm going to chair this is the person, well, you'll notice on the agenda that election of officers is down at the bottom. We already did that once, but because you weren't sworn in, doesn't count. It's as if it never happened. And then the third reason is that the person you did elect as chair, Mr. Orico, did I pronounce that correctly, has a new job and can't make the committee meeting, so he has stepped down. He will not be a member of the committee. So the charter and state law gives me the ability to open a meeting and chair it. The only thing I can't do is vote. So as an ex officio member, I will be your chair tonight, and I will conduct the meeting according to the agenda that's been posted. But first, I'm going to ask the town clerk to swear in.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Do we have to start from the very beginning? I mean, do the last two meetings not count?
Well, you don't have to start from the beginning because all you did was have discussions. You didn't vote on anything other than the officers.
Right.
If you had voted on something, like a recommendation, then yeah, you'd have to do that over. But you don't. No, you don't have to start over.
Okay.
And in fact, if it turned out that we didn't even have a quorum tonight, you could still have a discussion in public, and it would still count as a meeting, but you wouldn't be able to vote. That's how that works. But for those of you who have not been sworn in, I'm going to ask the town clerk to do that. Just a minute, Paul.
You have to raise, I think Daniel, you're set, and Robin, you were in this morning. So those of you that have not been sworn in, please stand and raise your right hands. And repeat after me. And you're going to state your name when I say I. I.
I,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United
and
States
the Constitution of the State of
and
Connecticut,
the Constitution of the State of Connecticut,
so long as I continue a citizen thereof,
so long as I continue a citizen thereof,
and that I will faithfully discharge,
and that I will faithfully discharge,
according to law,
according to law,
the duties of the office,
the duties of the office,
Religious Holiday Display Committee,
Religious Holiday Display
to
Committee,
the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Okay, I'm gonna have you each sign your spots, and then it'll be official.
Prior
Is that blue
to
or black?
us being asked to join the committee, we were requested to send in what our affiliation was.
Yeah. Yeah, but basically, I ignored that. I wanted every single person who raised their hand to be able to participate. I'm very sensitive about people thinking that committee members were selected for a purpose. You know, like if somebody had a strong opinion, that they wouldn't be included. So I wanted 100% participation. I didn't want to turn anybody away. So that's why I did it that way. So again, I'll apologize to you. That was my mistake. You know, no harm done because you didn't vote on anything other than officers.
And who decided on the name of the committee?
I'm sorry?
Who decided the name of this committee?
Probably me.
Because I kind of have a problem with the name of the committee.
Okay. Well,
I feel that it's public display on town, or display on public property or town property. It's not about religion. It's about
Public property.
Yes,
it's about what?
public use of public
Proper
property.
use of public property.
Well, I think we should hold this discussion after we open the meeting and turn on the recording.
I got it.
Okay.
Sign? Did anybody not sign? I think we're good. Okay, thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to call this meeting to order.
Let me just start it.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah.
See ya.
All right. This is funny. They will hear my voice, but I'm on the far end of this thing, so we don't have a wide enough angle lens. But I'm going to call this meeting of the Religious Display Committee to order. For now, that's what the name we have so far. For Thursday, June 6, 2019, I'll ask you to please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. First order of business is public comments. Are there any comments from members of the public who are here tonight? Please state your name and your address, please.
Paula Antolini, Jacobs Lane. I'd like a couple of things clarified. One thing on the agenda says consideration of approval of minutes from the special meeting Thursday, April 25th. If it didn't count that this committee, is that referring to this committee's meeting?
Yeah.
If it didn't count, then how can you approve it?
We probably skipped that
Okay.
because I noticed that too.
And another thing is, they were questioning before we were officially open this meeting, that you said nothing was voted on at the other two meetings. So
Except the
you don't
officers.
have to worry about anything, but nothing was on record. So I think that anything that happened before tonight should just not count. I mean, I think the discussion should just start all over. So
No.
there's,
Okay, thank you for your opinion.
and the third thing is, I'm wondering how this happened in the first place, that I understand, you gave an explanation before, that you just wanted it to be a casual committee, and the lawyer alerted you, the town lawyer, that,
Town attorney.
you know, you needed to do it a certain way and and the committee needed to be sworn in. How would you not know that? How would you not know that
Okay,
being?
I'm not going to answer any questions, Paula.
Okay.
You're welcome to your opinion.
It's a statement.
Okay, fine,
Okay.
that's
All right.
fine. I've explained it. That's.
Well, you didn't explain it while the meeting was open. You explained it off the record. So,
I'd like to know also how that mistake was made.
I just explained it.
But
There's
can you
really
explain it
no
on the
further
record?
explanation. I decided, okay, so we'll put this on the record. I decided that I wanted to have a more of an informal committee to facilitate discussions, as well as not be burdened with political affiliations, which I think is completely irrelevant in this context. So I structured the committee that way, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen the other two selectmen, by the way. Was informed by the town attorney that it is improper to do it that way, that any committee has to be formalized, has to be sworn in, and has to comply with the state law. So we checked everybody's political affiliation and found that we were within the guidelines or within the law of the state statutes anyway, so that political consideration became irrelevant. In fact, as I sit here, I couldn't tell, I didn't remember who belonged to what party, but it didn't matter. So it's being corrected. And that's where we are today. So, moving on, is there any other public comments? Yes, yes, sir.
Yeah, Victor Vlamakov, 74 Maple Avenue.
Could you spell your last name? I'm sorry.
H-O-L-O-M-A-K-O-F-F,
And your address?
74 Maple Avenue.
Thank you.
Yes.
No, I just wanted to be present because I just heard through the grapevine certain things with going on with, the placement of the nativity scene, which the church has, we've been involved in for a long time.
Mhm.
And we just went through a lot of, financial upgrading of that this past year.
Mhm.
So I just want to be kept kind of in the loop on where we're going to stand with all that at the end of this. So with the placement of that,
Mhm.
if we're going to still be able to do that, or if we're not going to be able to do that anymore.
That's
Well, we're glad to have you. Welcome.
part of the purpose of the committee. Any other public comments? Yes?
Hi, I'm Marlene D'Amico. I live on Rockwell Road. And
I'm sorry, what was your name?
Marlene D'Amico. And, New York City allows a life-size nativity in Central Park. The Catholic organization erects it every year. And if a city as diverse as New York City can be tolerant of a Christian symbol on public property, I think that we need to see what's wrong with our town, that we can't, there's so much animosity and so much discord over a symbol of peace. So that's my thoughts.
Could I comment on what you said?
No. This public comment,
All
this,
right.
So,
yeah.
okay, so, and I see a lot of, different arguments coming around town over everything. Everybody's arguing over everything. And some of it is really hurtful and hateful and personal attacks on good people. And I think that everybody should stop and see where those attacks are coming from. And if it's somebody that you're affiliated with, try to reel them in, because it's ugly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What street do you live on?
155 Rockwell Road.
Thank you.
Any other public comments? Okay, hearing none. Deanne, was there any
There's no
correspondence?
correspondence.
Okay. Consideration of approval of minutes. I don't think you need to vote on this because that was discussion. So we can, unless anybody noted any description of the discussion that you thought was incorrect, it's really sort of irrelevant though, as was pointed out. So unless there's any objection, we'll skip that item. Okay. Item, let's say, to the main point of the meeting. this says discussion of open areas for displays. I think, I'm going to share a personal opinion with you, because I have reviewed some of the other material, I've reviewed the previous meetings, and I think that, I think this is a difficult topic for this group. I think that you should, this is a recommendation on my part, I think you have to start, or you should start, with the fundamental question of yes or no. And we reviewed, and this, you may wish to think about this for a while. You may wish to have me bring in the town attorney for your next meeting, formulate questions for him. Because as it has been described to me by multiple attorneys, also by the readings I've done, to the point that was made by Mrs. D'Amico, displays of this nature can be placed on public property. But if they are, you cannot edit any other display. In other words, you can allow displays, or you can, of a religious nature, and it's specifically religious. So to your point earlier, this is a religious display committee because we already have zoning regulations in place for other types of displays, banners, signs, things of that nature. This specifically involves religious displays because of the constitutional issue that's involved in it, and the previous court rulings that have allowed them in some places and disallowed them in others. So the central question is, do you wish to continue to allow them on public property? And what you have to debate, and what you have to understand is that, and again, I totally encourage you to list all your questions, and we can arrange for your next meeting to have the town attorney in here so you can question him directly, as well as bring in any other resources that you might like. But if the answer is yes, then you must allow, or the town of Bethel must allow, other forms of display that people may or may not approve of. To use the specific example from the last holiday season, I want to commend the people who worked together to allow the secondary display to go up, the banner. There was a Happy Holidays banner, but I know that there was an objection to the word atheist on it. We cannot edit that.
I have a question with that.
Okay?
Is with the nativity,
Yep.
or the Christmas tree,
Yep.
or holiday tree, I don't know what you call it. I mean, everything is so politically correct. The nativity certain people may interpret that as a Christian symbol.
Mhm.
Personally, I don't. You know, I look at all the symbols as part of the holiday. It's not, I don't look at that and say, that's a Christian symbol. It was not labeled as a Christian symbol. There was no wording on that that said, you know, the Christians of Bethel welcome you to this holiday season.
There is wording on it.
Wait, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
Just to establish rules that we're going to have one speaker at a time and make sure that we respect everybody's time, so please
Okay.
continue.
Nope. In the reading that I had done, I can't recall exactly where I had seen it. It did state that if a church was taking specific ownership of that, that was not considered appropriate, as opposed to a public display as part of a recognition of the holiday. I had a problem with the banner because it went specifically to atheists. It didn't say happy holidays. That would be like having a banner on top of the nativity saying from your happy Christian neighbors. I found it offensive. It's not my fault that the atheists don't have a, quote, symbol of their beliefs, the way other religions may have symbols of their beliefs. a menorah, a nativity, a Christmas tree, Santa Claus, colored lights versus white lights. You know, it gets really silly. It gets, and I thought the nativity was done in it was very tactfully handled for public space. It was not, I didn't look at the nativity and say, oh, that really should be on St. Mary's front yard, or the Methodist church, or this church, or, you know, it's a symbol of the holiday. Just like if there was a menorah, I don't look at that as that's representing a specific synagogue. It's not specifically relating to any particular religion.
Okay. Well, there are, I think you should write that down, and I think we should have the town attorney come in, because I'm not going to try to cite case law, but I've read that there are court cases that sided with you as a nativity being a secular display. There are many others that said, by its very structure, it is a religious display, as is a menorah. It means a specific religion, and it cannot be confused for any other religion. But again, I think you should write down all the toughest possible questions you can, and we should have an opportunity for you to ask the town attorney that. Fran, you had your hand
Yeah, I have to
raised.
disagree with you, because I went over the Supreme Court decisions, and I believe I went through that during the
For the
first
record,
meeting.
I'm not taking a position one way or the other.
Okay.
I'm citing what I've
I'm
read.
just, the latest cases, I'll cite Lemon versus Kurtzman, says that it's not a religious symbol, that it's been around so long. It's a cultural and historical symbol.
Yeah.
And in some cases, you know, you can have, candy canes and Santa Clauses.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
You can, or you
I've
can
read
just
that.
have it
I've
alone.
read that case.
You can have it alone. And the Lemon test is, as long as it passes 4 different things, it can, a creche can remain on public property because it is no longer considered a religious symbol. It's considered ceremonial deism. And it's, you kind of like pretend. And the various Supreme Court cases that I looked at said that it's okay as long as you pretend. In other words, we're all pretending. You can look it up. That as long as-
I'm questioning the use of pretending.
Yeah, that's the actual word they use in these various cases. They said, it's ceremonial deism. In other words, we're pretending that it's not religious, and as long as we do that, it's considered not religious because it's been around so long that it's historical and cultural. And as long as it passes the Lemon test, then, and I could go through that, then it is not religious and it can be on town property. And they actually said there is no concrete, easily identifiable answer for determining what goes on public property. And they said craft whatever policy you want, and then of course show it to your town attorney. And this is citing like 7 or 8 cases,
Right.
Supreme Court cases. So it's really a muddle, and but it's not considered religious, not anymore.
Well, I think that the main point is, if you're going to allow it, you have to allow others as well.
Not necessarily.
That's not what I have been instructed by the attorneys.
Go back to the wording.
So,
Label
okay,
it.
bring your cases.
I will. I will.
Because that's, I mean, this is the point that we were last November. We have no right to say no to another display. That is very much agreed upon legal doctrine right now, as I've been informed. And again, we'll bring the attorney so you can say yes.
As long as the other displays also pass the Lemon test, that's the whole point.
Right.
Is that,
Yeah.
you have a law in place that says if it satisfies A, B, and C, it's 3 prongs, not 4, but it's 3 prongs, and if all 3 are satisfied, then it doesn't mean you're automatically in. It just means it's constitutional. It's allowable.
Okay.
But that's still, my feeling about this committee is that even if it's constitutional and allowable, is it desirable? Is it practical? That's the whole point.
Is it neighborhood friendly?
Right, that's the whole point,
Right.
prong 1, is it legal and constitutional, and prong 2, is this what we want? Do we want like 20 displays on a small little piece of,
Yeah,
land?
right, right. Well, what are those 3 or 4 prongs?
Okay, so the 3 prongs are first that the display must have a legitimate secular purpose.
Right.
So, 2, not have the primary effect of either advancing or inhibiting religion. And 3, not result in an excessive entanglement of government and religion.
Government is not involved, right?
Right. So, well, an entanglement of it, so that the government, that there's not a pull between, and we're creating a pull almost right now.
There's no coercion or endorsement.
Sorry, what was
Exactly.
the second one?
The second one is that it doesn't, does not have the primary effect of either advancing or inhibiting another religion,
Thank you.
or its own religion. So it's not saying, hey, let's all be Catholics, let's all be Christians, let's all
Right.
be Jews, let's all be atheists. It's just, it's kind of, it's just there.
Excuse me, First Selectman, can everybody identify themselves so I know who's speaking?
Holly Heslin.
Well, you want to start with you?
Would you like to
Sure,
start?
Diana Nadeo.
Francis Pulley?
Robin Dabbing.
Holly Heslin.
Tim Martin. Aaron Vincent.
Mary Shepherd.
Danielle Monroe, but I'm unclear as to why you are making a comment in the middle of our session.
Because I don't know who's speaking.
Public
Okay,
comment
so-
is closed.
Yeah, now good point taken. What was the third prong again?
That there's not a result in an excessive entanglement of government and religion. So ultimately what Francis said is that the town of Bethel would not be advocating
Right.
specifically for any one
Storing it, they're not
display.
putting it up, they're not taking it
Right,
down,
they're
they're
not
not
having anything to
maintaining
do with
it,
it,
or.
right.
That under,
Government property.
Right.
Okay. All right.
In the general framework of the section here, it makes it sound like that if we allow it, that we have to allow everything religious and non-religious. It specifically says that in here.
Yes.
So if we have it, and somebody wants to come and put a banner advertising their store, I
No.
mean, is it?
No,
So it's,
non-religious refers to atheism.
Where does it say that?
where does it draw that line to say what?
That's open to interpretation. I mean, we're not gonna, it doesn't apply, well, there's already zoning regs, as you're probably aware, that apply to commercial
Right.
signage.
But if somebody just wanted to put any sign up and just claim it's for non-religious reasons, I just want to put up my display up, my message, not affiliated with anything.
I don't know.
It almost seems like having regulations for religious displays makes sense because of the constitutionality specifically addressing religious displays.
Yeah,
But then it's pouring over into the non-religious, which should already be covered in the world of zoning and the world of everything else.
well, actually it is. Beth was gonna be here tonight, I think she got detained. But there are regulations already in place that prohibit signage, that we'd have to deal with that too.
Right.
But the purpose of that sentence was just to not exclude a sign that was put up by a person or a group that is an atheist. So that's all the non-religious, I wouldn't get too hung up on that, because that's all that non-religious refers to. But, that's what this committee would have to try to tackle and come up with a recommendation.
We also have to talk about the number, the size, the placement.
Well,
And
if
what-
your determination, your recommendation is yes, we should allow it, then yeah, you're right. You'd have to, not only that, but how to allocate it. And I'll give you an example. In one of the discussions we had with the town attorney, one of the other selectmen said, well, I don't see a problem with other displays. We'll just have the creche over here where it always goes. And then, we can worry about where the other things go. And the attorney said, no, you can't just arbitrarily say, oh, this one display gets the premier location by the tree. if it's going to be an open system, whether you have a lottery or something, you can't guarantee that any particular display is going to go in any particular place. It has to, you have to say, these are the spaces that are open, this is the date that we're going to accept the applications, and if you remember, there were already guidelines as to size, safety and things like that, but then you have to have some method of saying, okay, this one is going to go here, however you want to do it, a lottery, but you can't play favorites and say one gets a better location than another.
That's going to
Why
be
not?
very difficult,
So
deciding that.
The National Menorah in DC is in the same spot every year. So if I were to go down, which is public land, national public land, but public land nonetheless, and say that I would like that to be selected by lottery because I want to put a nativity set in that spot, they can't say, well, there's a precedent for that spot, or should they vacate that spot, it becomes available, or whatever this, they can't, there has to be something, or I can't believe that somebody would not have tried that, whether it be a nativity set or some others. There are clearly the nativity set that's in Central Park. There are certain public space that is allocated, if for precedent, if for, just pure, so everybody knows that's where it's gonna be every year, and it's not like, well, where the heck is it this year?
Yeah.
Let me go check the lottery results to see where the menorah is gonna be. Now, if that spot became available, then sure, who's gonna get it? If it's now open again, there probably has to be a random, you can't just randomly pick, but it doesn't seem logical that you would have to move the display at arbitrary random every year. We also have a limited number of spots. There are some spots
Well,
where
that's the key.
physically you can't put certain displays.
You're exactly right. I'm not going to try to answer that because I'm not an attorney, but my guess is, when we have Marty here and you can ask him that, if you have a space as big as the National Mall or Central Park, there are places of equal value where they're all visible. You have a lot of space to work with. We don't have that situation here. We have very limited space. So not all spaces are going to have the same visibility. But again, let's write that down. Let's have Marty at the next meeting.
Is there any chance that there are additional spaces beyond the three that the town proposed already?
Actually, I haven't kept up with it. What did they propose?
P.T. Barnum Square and two small islands.
Main Street Island and Libby Island.
No, there's other places, but
There's those 3 places that Park and Rec said were available.
yeah.
And I just talked to Beth on the phone, Beth Cavagna from Planning and Zoning. She apologized that she had an emergency come up. She was supposed to be here and it couldn't be avoided. And, just from the discussion that we had with her, and she was going to come tonight, it's really the 2 areas, the Liberty Island and Main Street,
Libby Island.
Libby Island and Main Street. Those are such small areas that you probably wouldn't be able
You
to
couldn't
put
put one in the small
anything
map.
there anyway.
Okay.
So you're really
Put that-
just looking at P.T.
Yeah.
Barnum.
So I guess one of the questions I have, which leads to the premier spot, is why aren't there other spots? There's plenty of other town land, whether it's parks, whether it's in front of the library, and I'm sure there's different spots that you can't do it for various reasons, but why can't we try to get the more that we have available, the less this becomes in play?
You can. I mean, if you wanted to open up the parks, as I understand it, and again, I think we're going to wind up tonight formulating a very long list of questions, but as I understand it, there's a difference in visibility between P.T. Barnum Square and if you put something down at Bennett Park. Who's going to see it?
Right.
You can't say, you run into the problem of one display having a premier location that's highly visible and another one being salted away where nobody is going to see it. And that's a problem that we have to overcome if we're going to look at other places.
I would just like to say that the law often doesn't reflect fairness either. It's about what's constitutional.
Yeah,
And as long as the town of Bethel, as long as this committee and the town of Bethel finds that something is constitutional and has a good reason, a reason that, and of course, I'm sitting here as just a regular committee member and trying not to wear my lawyer hat, but as long as, you have whether it's precedent or you have good reasons as to why, let's say, for because we know what the elephant in the room is the creche, you know, the creche
Yeah, right.
being in that one place that it's been every year, okay? And that's created a precedent. And the fact is that as long as the town of Bethel, as long as it's constitutional, number one, it passes the lemon test. And number two, the town of Bethel and those appointed to make these decisions have a good reason for keeping it there, then it doesn't matter that it may not be fair to other smaller displays, like they don't get that spot. Just like the menorah always gets the, you know, it gets
The
that
menorah
spot.
spot.
Right, it gets its spot and that's it. And, you know, yeah, sure, I'm sure that maybe a Christian group would love to have that spot for a creche, but they don't get it. And there's a good reason for it. It's constitutional and there's reasons behind it. So I'm just throwing it out there that this, I don't think it should be about everybody getting equal access and rotating.
Yeah.
It's really gotta be what makes the most sense, because to me, it wouldn't make sense to move the creche somewhere where it doesn't fit spatially and put
Doesn't
like
have
a,
power, doesn't
you know,
have height, doesn't.
yeah, and then just put like a, you know, a lollipop sign, you know, where it is. That doesn't make sense to me.
That's an excellent point.
You know.
Yeah, it's an,
I mean,
good
we
to
have,
have a lawyer.
it would not fit. I mean, arguably, these other spaces that are made available wouldn't fit.
Right,
There's also not power there. There's a lot of
right,
different
there's a lot of
We're
reasons.
talking about safety,
considerations.
safety as well.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the safety, you put in an island, it becomes a driving,
Yeah.
you're
Right.
literally gonna block your line of sight, but,
Mhm.
and maybe if there's additional sites, that would be a different story, but working within, you know, at least the list we have so far.
So I just would be interested to know how that reasonable, you know, decision gets made as to who gets that spot. And certainly, there is a longstanding tradition of having that one there, but again, if another group wanted to come in, regardless of what that affiliation is, I'm not sure what the solid argument is to say that they get to maintain that real estate versus somebody else
That
getting
would
to
be,
take it.
that would be up to the town in terms of proving that it's not arbitrary and capricious. It's not just like, oh, we like the creche, we like it there. That would be a violation.
Yeah,
you
right,
know.
exactly.
But if there are sound reasons why the creche works there, you know, and it's constitutional, you know, I think you satisfy.
Well, let me play devil's advocate with you. You test your thinking on that. So let's say we have the creche where it has been, and somebody wants to put up, you know, the satanic group, which, by the way, was nothing more than a sculpture of an arm holding an apple with a serpent around it, and it said knowledge at the base. But let's say they wanted to put up a, you know, fairly large display. And we said, well, there's no room over there because the creche is already there, and so it's going to go to Bennett Park. So who's going to see it? I mean, that, do we wind up in court fighting that argument?
Well, I would say, my feeling is that you, as long as the reasons behind the creche being in its particular position were made mindfully and with legal ramifications and not arbitrary or capricious, I think it holds up. If only for the precedence factor, you know? I mean, that's there.
You have to give a list of available spots.
Yeah.
There are some spots that have been selected, and if, you know, by precedent, by whatever rules the committee comes up with, that, you know, this spot is gonna be made available to whoever's had it. If they vacate it, then it goes to a lottery process, and until it is vacated, it's whatever the rules are, which that's the purpose of this committee, then they're following them, and that comes in, then it's, here's the list of available spots. No, if you were to say, I totally agree with you, if you were to say, we have a spot behind the shed in the field, in the.
Yeah, behind the park and rec building, yes, right.
That would be a constitutional problem, absolutely. So you would have to have a list of spots, hopefully bigger than the list we have. And then these spots may have to have certain restrictions as to what could go on them. Like literally, you could not put the nativity set on Libby Island.
Could not what?
You could not put the nativity set on Libby Island because it would be a traffic problem, it would be a safety issue, there's no power there, it wouldn't fit. Logistically, it wouldn't fit. So each of the spot may have to have certain criteria as to what could safely go there. But I do think there has to be something said for the precedent. If not, it becomes a round robin of what's where every year.
But I think that that's an important discussion.
I don't.
Yeah.
Okay. I do.
Well, yeah, precedents, listen, our law is based on precedents.
Precedent.
I mean, so we live with precedent.
Supreme Court
you
is
know.
based on
But I agree, one of my suggestions would be to look at the time frame too, so that maybe some of the more prime spots share the real estate, you know, so maybe if the creche is gonna stay where it is, because there's power and the price, maybe its length of being put up is shortened, so that maybe another group could be there beforehand, and then be
Or another
removed.
time of year.
Right,
There
or
could be
another time of
during
year, right.
Passover, there could be a different.
Right,
It
exactly,
doesn't have to just
exactly.
be.
That's something that I think the committee is losing.
I'm not
Right,
advocating
exactly.
tyranny of the majority, but if 88% of the population of Bethel is Christian, and maybe 1 point whatever percent is atheist, I mean, why are we being swayed to having to perhaps move the creche if the majority of the people in Bethel are Christian? And a very, very small percentage, I don't know what the percentage is, what the percentage of people, residents in Bethel, are atheists. I'd like to know that.
Write it down.
Okay.
That's,
What
that-
about putting it up to a vote of the people?
Well-
Popular vote.
Yeah.
I don't think that constitutionality and discrimination issues should be voted on, so I'm going to put my voice out there and say that that's not a good precedent, in my opinion, to put something like that to a vote, because minority rights matter as
they
well.
do.
Well, they do matter.
Minority
Votes
rights matter,
in that
but
house.
we're also talking about, as I said, I'm not advocating tyranny of the majority, but the majority does.
You're advocating for having a vote, which means that the majority would rule.
I'm not advocating a vote, I'm just saying that we have to take the percentage of people who are Christian in Bethel into consideration, and the minute number of people who are atheists.
If you don't know what the percentage is, I don't think using minute is an appropriate
Well,
term.
I'd like to, do you know what it is?
I don't,
I'd
so
like
I
to know
wouldn't
what it is.
assign
Do
a
you know
term
what
to
it
it.
is?
Can I just say that I think
Well,
that
hold
if
on,
I would
one
like to
speaker
know
at a
what
time,
it is.
please. One speaker at a time.
I just
Holly.
think that it's inappropriate to pass on to the citizens of Bethel a decision that there's more to it than just, do you like the creche, or do you, there's also, you know, zoning regulations and safety concerns and stuff. So I think a vote, you know, as much as, listen, majority rules in everything that we do in life, including the law. However, it's, in this particular context, we have people who were put in positions that have more information and knowledge than we do. And I certainly don't want to vote to put something somewhere that it would be unsafe. So
Right.
I think it would be inappropriate to put it to a vote.
I would like to see us be able to be as inclusive as possible of the minority without the minority trying to push the majority. either.
Right,
I mean, I think
exactly.
that there is something to be said for not just trying to flip it for the sake of flipping it.
Well,
You know, you need to be as inclusive as you can, but
My primary concern has not been removing the creche. My primary concern has
a
been.
lottery removes the crush.
I'm sorry?
A lottery removes a decades
No,
old
it
tradition. of
potentially
annual
removes the
crush.
crush, but let me finish my statement, please. My primary concern has been, as evidenced by the meetings that we did have leading up to this, that there is a significant portion of the town that is not interested in sharing any real estate with certain groups, and that will be very displeased should we try to put a different kind of display on the same real estate with the crash. So that, to me, is a big issue that our town needs to either come to terms with or not come to terms with by not having the issue. And I think that's what you were trying to mention earlier in the meeting. I think that's an important part of the conversation, that whether we get to it tonight or not, we really have to talk that through very carefully.
By the way, I was reminded that the other display areas, which you pointed out, the limitations, are the only places where that can go.
Why? Is there,
Well, actually, on the basis of visibility, so that there's, you know, that people can see it, but we can revisit that if you.
I would argue, living up in Stony Hill
Yeah,
before, I wasn't by P.T. Barnum Square rarely, but I was up and down Shelter Rock every day. You know, and McCower and Bennett, and the entranceway, you're not gonna relegate it to the back, but in the front, it's very visible.
you mean McCower?
And McCower or Bennett, it would have to be close to the road to be visible, sure.
We'll
In front of
check
the
it out.
library, or on the corner of the?
Library is, under state law, you have to go to the library.
Okay,
I mean, you'd have to go to the library board to have them develop their own policy.
got it.
Because we have no ability to, no right to tell them what to, like when the sculptures were out there?
Yeah.
Library board had to vote on that. But I'm gonna
That
write,
explains it for the state.
yeah. Okay. What else did you have? I wrote down the triangle by Shelter Rock and Payne. Can you think of any others?
Matt, it's P.T. Barnum Square.
Yeah.
It's at this four-way, the little plot of land right there, across from the liquor store,
Yeah,
okay, there.
The little garden.
And then the little area down from Congregational Church.
I think that, but
Drive
that's
around it.
reserved for the Blue Star Mothers.
Blue Star Mothers,
There's like
Blue
an
Star
island in the middle
Mothers
of the road.
is on the other end of town.
Yeah, right, yeah.
The only
right
place
there.
you can put it in the foodie side.
So those were the only three places
Yeah.
that it was agreed upon between planning and zoning and park and rec that would give equal amount of visibility and was not being used like the Blue Star, would,
Yeah,
mounts,
right.
That makes sense.
and was town property that could be used for this.
Okay, well, then I wrote down, for consideration to discuss with the town attorney, the big triangle that's right on the corner of Shelter Rock and Payne. Because that's a three-way intersection, and there's a Welcome to Bethel sign there. That potentially could be considered an equal visible because of its proximity to heavy traffic coming into town. So that might be possible
I
as
think the
well.
more places we have, the more, there was discussion about having too many things in one place, there was
Yeah.
discussion about visibility, there was discussion about practicality of some of the islands.
Yeah,
To your point about them having more options in New York City or DC, the more options there are, then the less some of this stuff becomes an issue, unless it's an issue just out of, I want that spot because I want that spot,
Yeah.
But as long as there are alternative spots, then, hopefully sounder minds can realize that they still have that visibility and they get to still do the display and, but if the policy is, formulated in a way and we apply it consistently, then
Mhm.
I'm hoping that, and that's for the attorney, I'm hoping that covers us
Mhm.
legally.
Mhm. Well, I think one of the questions that you need to write down is to ask the town attorney, can you reserve a spot for one display, as long as you have displays for any other entities that want to do it? Or does that have to be open? And let me give you for example, and I'm going to test your thinking on this just because I want you to consider every possibility. And let's say we have a lottery. Let's just say for discussion's sake that the two best locations are P.T. Barnum Square and that triangle on Payne Road. So you got the middle of town, you got the north end of town, both heavily trafficked. So let's say we have the creche, and let's say we have the knowledge, right? And we have a lottery. So you pick creche, and you pick the location, and it comes up Shelter Rock Road. Is that going to be acceptable?
I think you have to give some thought to the precedent that's already been there.
And you'll
Well,
have,
that's the question. Yes, because I can't answer that.
and
I
say,
don't know that precedent continues to work if we're going to say this is open. I'm not even, I have no opinion about that, and that's something we have to ask the attorney.
But would it
Can
be
I-
acceptable?
Excuse me,
Yeah,
can I just, I'm trying to keep a running total of questions.
yeah.
So before we go any further with discussion, can I just make sure that I've got the ones that you want so far? Okay, so what area of land is available? Not what's fair, but what's constitutional?
Right.
Why do the majority have to be conformed to the minority? And can you reserve a spot or / grandfather a spot?
Yeah, well, Tim, correct me if I'm wrong. I think the question is, do we have the right to say the creche will be by the Christmas tree over there because that's where it's always been? Right?
But-
That's what I
There's
meant
been
by
more
wait.
approved applications, and as long as they apply every year, And again, I think that's, again, I speak to the menorah, but I speak to just the logistical of not having it move every year.
Right.
Of going, all right, let's go to the, where's the menorah this year? Where's the, You know, and I think there's a lot of things that come up in the same spot every year. Now, if somebody vacates that spot, sure, there would have to be a process in place to figure out how you're gonna give it out again. To
Yes.
not look biased, to say, well, what's the next best one? I get that. Maybe a lottery. And there would have to be an application period and then whatever,
Yeah.
a drawing.
Right.
But so long as that spot is there, I don't see,
We have it in Bethel. We have the Blue Star, that they don't ever move. And I'm not saying I would want them to move.
correct.
What if
Yeah.
I want their spot?
But, I
Challenge it
mean,
for the
but the
chief?
point is that we already have a precedent of one thing staying in the same spot.
Diana?
So one area we got stuck on at the last meeting was regarding the timing of the variety of holidays and celebrations that exist during the holiday season, and then what happens when one overlaps with another, and in thinking of fairness, allowing everyone the same amount of time. So I guess like the question around how do we establish a time limit for if something is going to go up before the nativity scene goes up, how that is reconciled, and on the other side, like if there is anything throughout December that extends into January, we could, from my recollection, talked about that for the majority of the meeting and not being able to determine what the appropriate length of time was for each display.